with another chapter. And this chapter, Oda has cooked. He basically gave us all information on this chapter. What we need to know about the God's Knights. We already got, I was going to say Shanks, but Shamrock and Gunko's Devil Fruit. Now we're about to get some more information on the rest of the God's Knights. Now, here we are with One Piece chapter 1043, titled The God's Knights. Fitting title because we're about to see what these God's Knights can, the rest of the other two, see what they can do, right? And starting off is where the chapter actually left off, cutting back to the village, or where the school is. Now, all the monsters that got basically brought up by that one teacher, forgot her name again, but she told Soul and the rest of the Straw Hats and the principal, basically the kids were doing like a little assignment that she gave them, and all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but the assignment was the worst, what do you fear the most, and each kid gave basically their own take of what their worst nightmare is. And what do we have here? A bunch of Norse, well, not Norse, but a bunch of things that first was on the mural, second was Norse mythology, basically, that we know. And some of them was, I guess, supernatural wise. They even said a thunderstorm or a tornado or a thunder, something like that. So that got, for some reason, all their nightmares basically got popped in reality. Which, so I was like, God damn, really? So that makes you wonder too. And that makes you wonder, oh man. Let's dive into this first, because before I start popping off with this chapter, because oh man, a lot of theories with this one. Well, a lot of fun things you can do with this one, right? So the children's nightmares, basically, I'm trying to say, is they all popped out and now attacking the school, basically. And Soul is basically following where the sleeping children are basically walking towards to, wherever that arrow is pointing at too, because that's wherever the arrow pointing to is where the kids are going. And Soul's trying to basically find out what's going on, because he still can't wake up the kids. He even says, this white cloth, where are the kids going, basically. And Soul basically has an idea. Well, let me just wake them up. And he begins to shake them, or grab them, or stop them, trying to. But then it looks like invisible, some kind of thorn wraps around one of the children. And Soul goes in to pick him up, or tries to touch him, and he got hit with a bunch of thorns, basically, or that got pierced with a bunch of thorns, and that kind of hurts, so he backed away. And everybody says, so what happened? Did something stab you? And all of a sudden, a communication starts popping up. I'm calling from the Warless School. All students just suddenly fell into a deep sleep, and none of them are walking away, but they're still unconscious. What's going on here? And if you really look into it too, that the Pacific children with the Pacific nightmares, or from last chapter, those are the kids that actually was in there talking about their worst nightmares, basically. So I don't know if that's all of them, but that's what's going on. Now back to the Western Village. We have no idea what's causing this. That's not all. Mysterious beasts have emerged from the forest. And everybody's like, what, monsters? Now, with the snail, they also, when Oda put this on there too, a telecaddiction snail, only used within Elbath, basically. So I'm guessing it's like a telepathic snail, right? I don't know. But the kids were heading towards the 8th branch. And the rest of the Straw Hats, except Luffy, Sanji, and Zoro, are not there with them, basically, because we already know where they are from last chapter. So one of the giants says, "My kid is there," basically. And they're all saying, "Oh, well, this ain't good," because the eighth branch, well, come to find out, that's where Loki shot his lightning at the eighth branch. And guess what happened to the eighth branch? It's on fire. So basically, that arrow is taking them towards that eighth branch, which is on fire. Which what caused that fire is Loki's hammer or lightning, which he hit the branch, basically catching the branch on fire with lightning. So one of them says, "So they mean back there, right? Is everything okay?" He said, "No, it's not okay." So they either had to cut that branch off to prevent it from catching on fire, just like they did with the other one. And get this funny scene. Everybody is can't even speak properly, and the rest of them are just drunk. And Nami says, "You're all way too drunk." So basically, how do you handle fires? Basically, so do you want to know how you handle fires with firefighters? So they got One Piece basically got the equivalent to fires basically. So Fire Salvar has been dispatched. Go fire brigade basically. So they got the fire brigade going to the eighth branch to put out that fire basically. Unfortunately, they can't do that. They can't. No, for real though, because remember what I said about monsters coming out of the forest? Well, you got this big looking skeleton soldier popping out and rising up from the forest, and one of the giants says, "What the hell?" And the skeleton soldier rises up and slaps the fires down out the sky, basically slaps them out the sky, and everybody's looking at that and said, "Well, that's not good." And back to the Gods Knights, and the Gods Knights are having a blast or having dinner, and you don't see Shamrock there. So before we get to that, now Saint Summer says, "Did you see that? The look on the giant's face when the thorns got him? Talk about priceless." Now one of them said, "What was that expression again? Love is both roses and thorns, right?" And for some reason, you don't see Saint Summers there, because not Saint Summers, but Shamrock is not there with the other three. So remember what happened 3 chapters ago before Saint Summers and Saint Quilligam got there? So Saint Summers basically told Shamrock, said, "Hey, we kind of need you back at they need you back at basically Mirage Wall, because shit is so hectic, and they need you back there because it's up in chaos." So I'm thinking Shamrock went back to Mirage Wall and left these three here, since we don't see him in this chapter, right? Now the three of them are having dinner at the table, which I'm looking at is like, right? Now we get the 2 devil fruits for these Gods Knights. Saint Summers wields the devil fruit called Thorn Fruit, which is a Barrier Man, basically. And Quilham has that devil fruit too, but before we get to his devil fruit, Gunko explains, well, to be precise, Quilham says the central path there, or the central path, there are other thick branches. Gunko says, but making them go that way will get them to the ocean clouds I saw by the village. So their plan is, like I said from, I think, last chapter, that's Gunko's arrow. Gunko's arrow is basically telling them where to go, basically, or leading them. Well, how can I say that? Wherever directions, basically. Like a video game character. Great analogy. You have a controller, and you get to make your character move wherever direction you want. Basically what Gunko's doing with her arrows. Now, interesting part where Saint Summers do and Quilham tells what Saint Summers to do. So, Saint Summers says, to be in the center is to be vulnerable. That's a harsh reality to face, especially when you're too helpless to move. Quilham says, Summers, this needs salt. And Summer says, salt? Alright, hold on. And he goes to sleep. And all of a sudden, a salt pops up in his dream. I don't know how that works. A thought bubble pops up while St. Summers is asleep. And Quilham takes his hand, or his arm, both, and reaches for the thought bubble and puts his hand through it and gets the salt out. And St. Quilham's devil fruit is the mythical dragon fruit modeled Quillen, a dream materializing man. Pretty broken, if you ask me. But we don't know how broken it is until we find out how broken it is. And Asbats, rock salt, even the connoisseur, And St. Summers wakes up and said, what? Now, they bring up, well, we should, not they, but Gunko brings up, so it's delicious, but we should all also be aware whoever's on this island, because Straw Hat Luffy is on this island, right? Or Straw Hat Luffy, the Emperor Straw Hat Luffy, is on Elbath. And she even says, well, if he's on this island, that's not good, because he can throw a wrench in our plans, which that's not good. And Gonko even brings up, son, or not Gonko, but Summers brings up, say, so aren't the kids heading straight for the fire? It spread faster than I expected, but no matter. If they die, we'll just have the next batch march over. Now, cutting back to the land of the dead, Loki could go ahead and try something, Harujin. Go ahead. So, that's not good. Another thing is, we all know how last chapter and 4 chapters ago that Loki is pretty injured. And we know why, which he's been injured by Shamrock and Gunko's attacks. So, especially Shamrock's latest attack too, which dealt major damage to him. So, Sanji tells Luffy, he said, well, hey, what's the deal with this monstrous giant? He's injured. If we don't help, he'll... And one of them said, if you don't... Or Loki says, if you don't answer. And one of them said, wait, we get it. And not one of them, but Loki grins. And Zora tells him, said, don't fall for it, Harujin. And then Harujin said, Zora. And then Luffy says, I guess there's no choice. I promise. If you did anything, I'd drop you. And that's what he said when... how their first meeting went too. So remember when Luffy and Loki first met, and Luffy promised Loki, or said something, or threatened Loki, said, if you did anything before when I unlocked those chains, I'd drop your ass. And what did Loki did? Well, he did just that. And Luffy's about to follow up on that process. Now, Haruji said, wait, Straw Hat, he'll zap you if you get near him. Which, if you don't remember what happened with Enru, Luffy's immune to lightning and thunder. Unless if it's heated. But he's not immune to piercing or blood. I think he's immune with bludgeoning damage. But not to piercing or slash damage. There you go. Since he's made of rubber, that's his weakness. So... in actuality, what Luffy ends up doing is gum arm balloon and drops Loki just like that. That's what happened. And one of the giant warrior pirates says, there's no turning back from a crime like this. Just stop, Loki. Think of the children. And then Zoro says, Luffy, are you going to let him off easy? His wounds are about to open up again anyways. And, well, by the time he did that, he drops anyway. So, there you go. Zoro says, well, he was already at death's door anyway, so I think it's our problem. And one of them says, just standing was taking all the strength he could muster. It was a nice try. He probably planned on finding somewhere to pass out safely after he escaped. And Harujin said, I doubt he had made it or even given a blood loss. Zoro also says, now it's up to you whether you want to treat him or let him croak, basically. And look, typical Luffy says, well, I still have unfinished business with him, so you might as well heal him. And That's what he told Jerd. Basically, just please heal him. But she's reluctant to heal Loki, given the shit he done and his past and stuff. Hiruji looks at Loki too like that too. He's like, why would I let this motherfucker live, right? So Loki is getting bandaged up and getting blood with, mind you, he's still chained, by the way, if you can't tell, and his hammer, which I thought that was a sword at first. So, anyways, one of them says they won't be so forgiven at the village. It'll be a one-way ticket to execution, which he's like, I don't give a damn. He's barely conscious, but he's conscious, going in and out conscious, so he can still hear. Now, Luffy says, wow, those horns are the real deal. And Haruji said, it's the mark of the ancient giants. Our father, Harold, was the same. Haruji thinks back to a flashback occurs, and Haruji remembers his father telling him, you are both my precious sons. I want you to get along when I'm gone, and do what you can to support Elbath. And Haruji remembers Loki beating him. How can I call such a weak runt my big brother? You're just a well, you already know. But Dad's true to be Dad's true heir, basically. Harujin. Everyone knows your mom's got dirty blood, basically. So after remember that flashback, he takes his battle axe and gets ready to do the finishing blow. And everybody's like, oh, wait a minute, what's going on? And Haruji says, there's no way I can ever forgive him. He insulted my mother and killed our father. And Loki's basically just telling him, said, do it, let's do it. Because all the bullshit y'all be spilling and spinning these days, shoot, can't even tell from, here's a better analogy, he said. You're so drunk on all this personal drama, you can't even see the forest for the trees. Don't tell me you're really like the rest, thinking I actually killed our father in cold blood. And he finished this off with this. You don't really buy it, do you? And Haruji's like, what? What are you trying to say? Chapter end, and no break next week, so that's going to be fun. So, final thoughts on this chapter. Quillham, one of the God's Knights that ate the dragon. I bet when he ate the dragon, that actually gave him a dragon appearance, right? So he ate the mythical dragon fruit, model Quillin. So that I'm guessing he got in. I'm guessing that. How can I put that? How can I put this? I'm guessing the appearance alone is the dragon, but I don't know how that works though. I'm kind of conflicted here. But the ability, I'm more interested in that, because if he got the power to pop some, I don't know how he can do that. But that makes you wonder too. So wherever someone's dreaming about, he can just pop that out into reality. So, for example, if you can pop out, if Luffy is dreaming of Shanks, right? Or whoever's strong opponent, right? Anybody he can think of, if he pops out with Shanks, and somehow Quillham's like, oh, and Shanks comes to a perfectly imaged Shanks, and he grabs him and pops him out in the real world. How strong do you think that Shanks that Luffy thought up in the dream world, that he thought up in the dream, will be, right? So another thing I want to say is, well, not another thing, but here's another example. So if Sanji goes to dream about something, well, can Quillham pop whoever Sanji's is dreaming about into reality? Because you got to really think too. That makes you really think. Oh man, that's a topic of discussion right there. So that really gets you wondering. So, oh, this devil fruit is limitless, right? Unlimited to what you can do. But my thing is, it has to be a drawback to this devil fruit, because everything has a weakness, a drawback. Like Luffy's resistance to lightning, right? Lightning and thunder damage, but he's not resistant to piercing and slashing damage. Same thing with crocodile with sand fruit. He's tangible, but he can't. But untangible. But when he's splashed with water, he's tangible. So I may be saying that tangible and untangible, right? But basically, what I'm trying to say is, if Sir Crocodile gets hit with water, you be able to punch him, flesh and blood and all, right? So you be able to damage him. That's a good example. Trying to figure out another one. What's another one I can use? I can't think of any other devil fruit weakness. Not devil fruit weakness, but a drawback. But every devil fruit, no matter how powerful it is, has a drawback. No matter, unless you train it up to like, resist weaknesses like that, which some people have. Title, for example, Big Mom, and all of them too that have devil fruits, but you can't train them up to that point to resist those resistances. But some way you can exploit that to damage them a bit by bit, right? So what I'm trying to say here is that this devil fruit has to have like a drawback. Not all devil fruits can have weaknesses, right? But they have to have drawbacks. Unless you clip them with the sea prism stone, then though that makes you wonder though. How strong do you think the God's Knights are with sea prism stones are? Shoot. We all know Luffy is kind of susceptible to sea prism stone, right? Don't know how, like, you gotta be like physically strong enough to put up a fight to like actually fight with sea prism stone. Willpower and stuff, right? Another thing I want to bring up is how Saint Summer's devil fruit works too. We already know what Gunko's devil fruit is. Shamrock's, we need more data on him because we don't know. Like I said, we haven't seen his full power yet to able to base him judge on what he can do. Gunko, shoot, she was laying hands on Loki, so we gotta meet her of what she can do. Another thing is, she has her arrow fruit basically, so we don't know what the weaknesses of that is either. So what she probably trained that devil fruit to where she can resist weaknesses, or just like, oh, I be plugged in holes in all these weaknesses in my devil fruit. Except if you find a loophole in it, that's another thing too. Loopholes in the devil fruit abilities. Shoot. And another thing I want to bring up is how do you got to be knocked out automatically, or do you have to knock yourself out to be able to activate the devil fruit? His devil fruit, is that how it works? But if you like this chapter, this video, and subscribe and comment down below if you think Saint Quill, can't say his name right, Quillgam, I'm gonna keep calling him that, Quillgam has a busted devil fruit ability. Shoot, it kind of is if you actually, like, if you explained it or how I explained it or put in your own words, then you can do a lot, right? Don't know how other people will see it, but then, you know, another thing, well, you know what? I said that for another video. Thanks again, and see you next adventure. Laters.